Vice President Kamala Harris soundly defeated President Donald Trump in their first and perhaps only presidential debate. With a calm, exacting performance, Harris turned the former president's well worn insult book against him, making Trump lose his temper and then his moorings as he descended into angry and fact free rants about immigrants eating dogs and imagery peace and imaginary, I should say, peace talks in Ukraine. And inflation eased again in August, dropping to the lowest level in more than 3 years and locking in expectations that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates next week for the first time since the pandemic's early days. And the share of students who identified as Black at Harvard dropped this year after a landmark Supreme Court ruling overturned race conscious admissions of the incoming students who identified their race. A significant number did not, and that's 14% of the class of 2028, identified as African American or Black. And last year, that percentage was 18%. And Speaker Mike Johnson today abruptly canceled a vote on his initial plan to avert a government shutdown as opposition to the 6-month stopgap funding measure piled up in both parties. It was a bruising setback for Johnson, coming only a few weeks before a September 30th deadline that Congress faces to fund the government or face a shutdown. And the father of an 11-year-old Ohio boy who was killed last year when a minivan driven by a Haitian immigrant struck his school bus said that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were morally bankrupt politicians who were using his dead son as a political tool. Nathan Clark of Springfield, Ohio, denounced the Republican presidential ticket and asked them to apologize in an impassioned speech before the city commission after Vance mentioned the death of Clark's son at a recent rally as a reason to oppose Haitian immigration. And the 11-year-old who lost his life was named Aiden. Prayers for his family. And in some good news for the Harris campaign, pop superstar Taylor Swift endorsed presidential candidate Kamala Harris after, that is, the high stakes debate last night. She said, "I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election." She says, I'm voting for them because she, meaning Harris, fights for the rights and causes I believe need to be championed. Taylor Swift has already caused over 300,000 of her fans to go to a website where they can sign up to vote and volunteer and donate to the Harris-Walz campaign. And all of that happened just since last night, and the endorsement was posted to her 283 million followers on Instagram. And today, we acknowledge the anniversary of the terrorist attack of the U.S. on September 11th. Almost 3,000 people were killed in that attack. President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and former President Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, all joined together at a memorial site in New York to pay tribute to the individuals who lost their lives as well as their families, and to talk about the need for continuing to ensure peace in the United States and to ensure that this country is protected from such terrorist attacks in the future. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is hour 2 of Areva Martin in real time, and this is the hour where we go a little deeper, where we dig behind those headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, 67 million people tuned into the debate last night. That's pretty much comparable to the number of folks that watched the Hillary Clinton Donald Trump debate and the Mitt Romney debate against Barack Obama. That number far surpasses the Joe Biden and Donald Trump debate of June of this year. And when they look across all social media platforms and other media outlets, that number is likely to surpass 100 million people. So folks are clearly tuning into this election. It's a couple of weeks after Labor Day, which is when people really start to think about the elections. A lot happened on that stage last night. A lot of folks are opining about who won the debate. Some folks said Kamala Harris delivered a knockout punch to Donald Trump. There are all kinds of headlines that she slayed the biggest bully, and other headlines from experts. Of course, if you turn to Fox News, they said, as well as Donald Trump, that it was a perfect debate for Donald Trump and that he won the debate. Some of the Fox experts also say Kamala Harris dodged questions, that she was given help by the moderators, that she refused to explain why she's had some shifts, as they call it, in some of her policies. They said that she exaggerated and that she distorted Donald Trump's record. Well, yeah, of course, that's Fox News, and that's what you would expect. But pretty much everyone else in the universe agreed that Kamala Harris had one of the best debate performances ever, not just for her, but really when they look across debates in the modern era, hers is up there in the top 2 or 3 debate performances. She did exactly what her team wanted her to do, which was to unnerve Donald Trump, get under his skin, throw him off his game, draw a stark contrast between her as a candidate and him, show the nation that she's ready to move forward, ready to help folks live out their dreams, aspirations, and hope, while he continues to talk about a failing country that's on the brink of complete disaster, high rates of crime, criminals coming in from all over the place, particularly the southern border, eating your pets, and taking your African-American jobs, not your Black jobs, now your African-American jobs. So I invited 2 of our regulars, Dr. Julianne Malvo and Dr. David Eichhardt, to join me in this hour because they both know a whole lot about race and gender and politics. They know a lot about political debates, how they move, if at all, voters, how they influence elections. So in this hour, we're going to be talking about not just what we saw on that stage, frame by frame, but also what the impact of that debate might be, particularly given the closeness of this race. Kind of hard to believe, but yes, this is, according to the experts, a race that is razor thin in terms of the margins. Harris up a couple of points in some key battleground states, Trump up, according to some polls, in some key battleground states. And the experts expect this to remain the case, to be this way all the way through November. So if that's the case, should there be a second debate? Might that second debate, if it happens, change the numbers, change the polling in this very contentious election? When we come forward, Dr. Julianne Malvo, Dr. David Eichhardt will join me right here on Areva Martin in Real Time. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Presenting Again Fling's love story. Dear love of my life, we were on the 12B bus this morning when I caught a whiff. A scent so fresh, so life-changing, I had to find its source. Alas, I didn't know if you were the woman in the pink freshly washed cardigan or the retired mailman next to me, but I knew one of you was my soulmate. Ah, the scent of Gain Flings. Try Gain Flings with OxyBoost and Febreze.
What's wrong?
My travel rewards card didn't earn enough miles for my vacation.
Are you crying? Are you crying because of that other credit card?
Uh-huh.
Well, switch to the Capital One Venture card. Venture lets you redeem miles on any travel purchase.
Really?
Yep, and you earn unlimited double miles on every purchase every single day. The Capital One Venture card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and Dr. Julianne Malveaux and Dr. David Eichart are joining me in this hour, and we're still talking about the debate of the century, definitely the biggest debate of this political era. And I'll start with you, Dr. Malveaux. Kamala Harris shook Donald Trump's hand, and his confidence in a single power gesture that some folks are calling the ultimate boss move. Talk to us about what you saw on that debate stage last night.
Well, I think that the vice president wiped the floor with him. I think she was cool, calm, and collected. She maintained her composure throughout. She had a very pleasant countenance, unlike his. He scowled his way through the whole thing, but she smiled. She was very attentive. He didn't ever turn his head to look at her. But she set the tone from Front Street. She walked up to him and put her hand out. And that's a confident move. And he knew who she was. She knew who he was, but which is what our parents tell us to do when we walk into a room. Introduce yourself to people. You know, when I talk to young people, I always say, don't just come in the room and sit. Introduce yourself to people. Say, I'm so-and-so. And she did that. And I think that shook him because she showed her confidence. And then throughout, she showed her confidence. She was out to rattle his cage, and she did, because he's incapable of passing over provocation. You know, when she talked about his crowd size, of course he had to answer that. And he answered the things with the most inane kinds of things, the dogs and cats. And I took the Haitian comment rather personally. My grandfather was Haitian. People, they don't eat people's dogs and cats. But again, it's the kind of J.D. Vance single cat ladies comment that they seem to make to want to alienate people. The challenge, though, Areva, as you said in your opening, is no matter what happens, this is going to be a very close election. No matter what happens, he's going to screw up. She hasn't screwed up yet, but she might. Everybody's human. But it's going to be very close because on the Republican side, probably between 35 and 45% of those Republicans are ride or die Trumpies. No matter what happens. I mean, as he said in 2015, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. And you see that he pretty much has. And so you have that on one side, and then you have this slice, 5, 8, maybe 10% of undecideds. I don't understand why they're undecided, but they're there, they're undecided, and they have a right to their opinion. But when I'm looking at them, I'm like, well, what, you know, and then you have, of course, the ride or die Dems, and she's basically convincing more and more of them. There were some who were very angry with her when President Biden left, but now people have seemed to calm down. She does better than President Biden did in many of the polls, and she's injected, you were there, this new energy into the Democratic Party, as we saw, you know, at the convention, just a new energy, people excited, people pleasant, people, you know, so that there's that. But at the end of the day, we don't count polls, we count votes. And in votes, you know, what we have to say is we don't know. The ideal situation, frankly, would be for her to win by an unshakable margin. Because you know that it appears that he thinks that if George is 11,000 again, He's going to start dialing for votes. Pennsylvania is close. We know what states are. So ideally, we'd have enough of a cushion that he would not be able to start this mess that he started in 20 about, I really won the election. He still has not conceded that he didn't win the 2020 election. And that's, as she said, he's having some problems with reality, but he's having lots of problems with reality. And we know that. And so this, as everyone has said, she's got, what's going on is great. She's got to dig down and work. And Jim Clyburn gave her advice today. He said that she really needed to get out there. I don't think she has to do another debate. I mean, and he doesn't want to because he'll get his behind whipped again. But I think that she does need to be in town hall meetings.
Excuse me. Let me ask you this, Julian. I want to stop you for a second. When he said get out there, what does she mean? What did Jim Clyburn mean by that?
Town hall meetings with constituents, unscripted questions, some of the things that she really hasn't done yet. Now, I'm not blaming her. The campaign is new. She's had to totally reshuffle the staff. Not totally reshuffle, but she's had a lot of work to do. And she's had to hit those stops. But now she's got to literally let people ask her questions. She has to be willing to answer questions. And heretofore, the press, the debate was good. I mean, she answered a lot of questions. But for me, as an economist, I need her to drill in on some of these economic programs that she's put out there. I'm going to support her, whatever. And I think her programs are good, but I do think she needs to drill down. One of the questions a lot of people are asking is, okay, you want to give everybody $25,000, buy a new house. What fund is going to pay for that? You want to expand the child tax credit to $6,000. Who's going to pay for that? I mean, I'm sure she's figured it out, but just tell somebody, because Congressional Black Budget Office and others are going to want to say, okay, so what's the economic impact of this? And as long as she's vague, they won't be able to answer. Now, in fairness, that other man has never been specific about anything. So,
he has some concepts, Dr. Malvo, about a healthcare plan. He's going to get back to us with the particulars. We've been waiting about 9 years for those particulars. And that's what I want to ask you, David. You raise a good point, Dr. Malvo. Yes, as an economist, you would, and your colleagues would want to know the impact of some of these policies. But David, is that a different standard, Dr. Icard, when we say we need particulars on her policies, when Donald Trump says on a stage, a debate stage, national debate stage, I don't have a plan for healthcare. I have some concepts, and I'm going to, send you some notes a little later, maybe when I'm dead or something. So are we holding her to a higher standard?
I mean, of course. And given what happened to Sister Gay out there at Harvard, given what we've seen, how people held Hillary Clinton to a higher standard, and there was no more a politician more qualified and wonkish than she. I mean, she would put you to sleep with all the details of the various plans that she had on the economy and healthcare and whatever. And we see where that got her, right? I think I applaud Kamala Harris because she's been very strategic. She's been very calculated given this environment. I think sometimes we forget that no Black woman has ever gotten this far, has never actually been in a legitimate position to be president of the United States. And she is playing it, I think, necessarily carefully because there are a lot of stigmas about Black women being hypermasculine, about being shrewd. I mean, that's why all this fixation on her facial expressions, fixation on the way she laughs. We even see it in the way that people obsessed over Michelle Obama's shoulders and her body. So of course, like she doesn't get to play by the same playbook at those white boys. Can you imagine? Let's put this in a little bit of context. Can you imagine if she came out and gave the type of performance that Donald Trump gave, where at one point he said, in Afghanistan, there was this, and then this, and you didn't do any of that. Like he literally said that. Like that was a literal line. You did this, and this, and you literally didn't accomplish any of that. If she came out with that type of Like, and start talking about Haitians.
I'm not going to even call it fifth grade language because I'm
I mean, like,
a fifth grader.
Like, can you imagine the type of headlines we would have? And so when you see the bar set for what she's supposed to do, she's got to be tight on policy. She's got to be articulate. She's got to look a certain way. She can't get angry, but also she can't look too soft. I mean, I applaud the fact that she's excited the base, the fact that she's been careful but scripted, but also strong. The fact that with all that noise, she showed up and showed out. I'm going to put my money on this woman knowing what she's doing. And I think we need to trust her vision because she hasn't missed yet. Her VP pick, the way she's prepared for this debate, the way she's rallied all these different constituencies from Black women to white entrepreneurs, to CEOs, to now the Swifties. She's playing it very, very well. And I think we should give her credit where credit is due, particularly in the climate historically where Black women are easily vilified, easily villainized, easily held to a much higher standard than the whites in general, and even Black men.
Yeah, she's taken the coalition word to a new level. And she told us that last night, 200 Republicans from former Republican administrations, including the former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney and his daughter, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. That's typically not a part of the coalition. When we talk about the rainbow, Dr. Malvo, it's usually gays and Black folks and Latinos and Asians and indigenous people. It doesn't typically include some of the most conservative, not just Republicans, but we all remember Dick Cheney was a hardcore conservative Republican, and many Democrats probably loathe. And now for him to be talked about on that debate stage as a part of the coalition, how shocking was that?
Well, girl, I have a whole trove of Dick Cheney jokes that I've told over the years, on the air and off the air, because he was a warmonger. He was affiliated with Bechtel, who basically going back, he just was a bad actor. Lynn Cheney, his wife, another one, tried to destroy the National Arts Commission, and I forget the exact title of it, but she tried to destroy that. She didn't believe that PBS should be funded. There was a time when she was a host of Crossfire at CNN, and we had an epic throwdown that ended with me refraining to use profanity. But if you read my face, you knew exactly what I was thinking. It's a very, very conservative family. The daughter, she basically, the thing about that family is that they love the country and they love the Constitution. And they also love the diversity of views, even though they want to have their way. Now, let me not get that wrong. They want to have their way. So what they feel about the orange man has to be extreme to get them to decide that they will not just stay out of it, which many have done. Mitt Romney has done, both Bushes have done, but to actually say, I will vote for Kamala Harris. What he's doing is he's giving other Republicans permission, if you will, to look at Trump through a different lens, through the lens of, first of all, his unhingedness. That's number one, which was very obvious in the debate, but also from his basically disdain for the rule of law. Who would have thought that anybody with sense would vote for somebody who has an $87 million finding on sexual assault? This used to be the party of law and order. Who would think that 34, I keep calling it 47, I don't know why, but the 34 felony convictions. As an attorney, how unusual is that? 34. My brother only has one, and I hardly speak to him. He just had one. So, it's
clearly would have been disqualifying for any other candidate to have any kind of criminal history, whether it's a misdemeanor, ticket for jaywalking. That would have been in certain eras disqualifying. None of that seems to stick to Donald Trump. He seems to defy all of the rules of politics. He's done so before, and he continues to do so. Debates are about educating the public too. So there was a lot of things discussed last night that a lot of folks sitting at home may not have been aware of. When we come forward, I want to talk about some of those topics, particularly when Kamala Harris got into baiting Donald Trump about how leaders around the country are laughing at him, how disgraceful he is to his own, military leaders that worked under him. He then used the name Viktor Orban. He touted that as if that was something to feel good about, to be proud of, as someone who admired and respected him. Now, a lot of folks sitting at home maybe had to go to Google or didn't go to Google, but we're going to talk about who Viktor Orban is and how ironic it is, again, that a Republican, consistent with what you just said, Dr. Malvo, is boasting about having the endorsement of someone like Viktor Orban. Stay with us when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580.
More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Doug Davis, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former President Trump says he doesn't care about the race of Vice President Harris. During Tuesday's debate hosted by ABC News, Trump spoke on prior comments that he didn't know Harris was black.
All I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me.
Some people are also questioning his comment she put out. Harris said it's awful that someone who wants the office has used race to divide the American public. Sean Diddy Combs is being hit with another sex abuse lawsuit. Former bandmate Don Richard, who was in Diddy's group Danity Kane and Dirty Money, is suing the rapper, claiming he terrorized, belittled, and groped her. Richard is the 8th person to sue the mogul for sexual assault. And that is the latest. I'm Doug Davis from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com. Have a great Hump Day Wednesday and stay safe out there.
Over in Long Beach, SIG alert involving an overturned big rig continues to have the 103 on and off ramp closed, both north and southbound. And please be advised as there is no estimated time of reopening. Back in LA on Mount Emma Road at Cheeseboro, there's a brush fire that has broken out on the right shoulder, and it is part of the Joshua fire that is nearby. This also affects your commute for those on 42nd Street East at Mount Emma Road. And over in Pico Rivera, watch for the stall being blocked on the 605 South at Beverly Boulevard with a 10 to 15-minute backup from Peck Road.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill admitted Wednesday morning that he could have handled himself better when he was pulled over Sunday morning in Miami for a traffic violation. Hill was a few blocks away from Hard Rock Stadium when he was pulled over by Miami-Dade police for reckless driving. The encounter led to Hill being pulled out of his car, handcuffed, and thrown to the ground. Hill said, "I've got to follow the rules. I've got to do what everyone else would do." Hill still expressed his disappointment in how he was treated, specifically by Danny Torres, a 27-year veteran of the Miami-Dade Police Department. Torres was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. Hill and his lawyer Julius Collins and his agent Drew Rosenhaus want Torres fired immediately. No word yet on whether Hill plans to pursue legal action against Torres or the Miami-Dade Police. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, We don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. By any other name, we demand environmental justice in 2024 and beyond. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
Hi, this is Councilman Curran Price, inviting you to be part of our city's legendary musical history at the 29th Annual Central Avenue Jazz Festival on September the 21st from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. For decades, the Central Avenue Jazz Festival has honored this historic corridor's unparalleled contribution to jazz. Enjoy a day filled with jazz, blues, and Latin jazz across 3 stages, featuring performances by Chief Ajua, the John Beasley Big Band, and Las Chicas. Indulge in a variety of delicious foods from barbecue to Asian fusion, and explore from a unique mix of vendors and more. The festival is free to attend, and it takes place on Central Avenue between King Boulevard and Vernon Avenue. Parking is limited, so Metro and rideshare are recommended. For more information, visit centralavejazzfest.com. That's centralavejazzfest.com. See you on the 21st.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and we are dissecting the epic debate last night between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And, while some folks were probably checking on their pets after that statement from Donald Trump that Haitians were capturing dogs and cats and eating them, other folks were probably wondering, who is this Viktor Orban guy, and why is Donald Trump praising him so much? Well, I have 2 professors here, and I would be remiss if I did not do a little history lesson on Viktor Orban, because he is considered one of Europe's strong men in terms of his authoritarian style of governing. And there are a lot of similarities between Viktor and Donald Trump. He started out being pro-democracy, switched parties in the same way that Donald Trump started out as a Democrat and switched parties, changed the Constitution in his country, changed all of the governing principles to give him pretty much complete authority that will last indefinitely. And a lot of the Project 2025 that Kamala Harris talked about last night, a lot of the principles, a lot of the notions stated in Project 2025 mirror those of Viktor Orban. And so for those who think that this bromance that Trump has with Orban and that he has with Putin is something that could be dismissed as just silly, they are sadly mistaken. Professor Eichart, let me start with you. Give us a little history lesson on who Viktor Orban is and why his relationship with Donald Trump should have all of us concerned.
Well, I mean, you heard it last night. I was actually shocked, given how brutal Orban has been. I mean, he's of course known throughout the world, and particularly in Europe, as being an autocrat, as being violent, as as changing the whole dynamic of democracy for his country. So the fact that he didn't talk about Germany, he didn't talk about France, he didn't talk about Great Britain, he didn't talk about any of our allies, right, in terms of what they think about his presidency, the support that he gets from them. But he talked about dictators, Orban, he talked about Putin. And need I remind the listeners, when asked directly about the war in Ukraine and Russia and who he wanted to win, he would not give an answer. He said, I want the war to end, but he didn't say, right, that I am with our allies in Europe, right, who are fighting for the sovereignty of a country in Ukraine, right? And so I think it is alarming, to say the least, and very dangerous, to say the worst, to put somebody who clearly is not only celebrating this kind of autocratic leadership, but who intends, based on, now remember, the Supreme Court is basically giving this guy a green light so long as he can say that the things that he is doing in this presidency is about the business of the presidency, he basically is given immunity. So given the way that the Supreme Court has stacked the deck for him, and the ways that he's clearly signaling that these are the men that he admires, and has literally said, as Kamala Harris stated last night, that he plans on being a dictator himself day one.
Yeah, Viktor Orban won a landslide election in 2010 after mismanagement of a global financial crisis in Hungary, and his party controlled enough votes to change Hungary's constitution. And again, following a well-known authoritarian playbook, they destroyed Supreme Court oversight. They captured the media. They took over universities. They denounced refugees. He attacked George Soros. He supported traditional family values, and then hoped to expand Hungary's territory at the expense of neighboring countries, including Ukraine. So who does that sound like, Professor Malvo?
Well, you know, he's an acolyte of Vladimir Putin's. We know that. And it's alarming, as Professor Eichhardt said, it's alarming that of all the world leaders that Mr. Trump could mention, he mentions an authoritarian who basically wants his country to kind of like be the center of the international conservative movement. Not only changing their constitution, attacking refugees and immigrants, really trying to keep down the number of refugees and immigrants that are coming into the country. And, you know, one of the things that a lot of people don't glom in on, but we should, he's closely associated with Benjamin Netanyahu. And so that has some implications as well as we look at what's happening in the Middle East. I'm disappointed, not really disappointed. I'm puzzled, as everyone is, that the United States has not taken a stronger role in getting peace in the Middle East. I mean, we saw at the Democratic Convention, our Palestinian brothers and sisters protesting because they were very alarmed. And the vice president has not strayed very far from the president in the policy towards Israel, although I do imagine that it may be somewhat softer. But the association between Orban and Netanyahu, and they've known each other forever. So they're boys. You know, so that association is troubling in terms of looking at Middle Eastern policy. And I would suggest that those who expect more flexibility in that policy look askance at Mr. Trump. But there are many, many reasons to look askance at him. As I said, there's so many people he could have mentioned that he does have relationships with, although no one takes him without a grain of salt. But to mention that one and only that one tells you exactly what his affinity is and where he's coming from. And so you're right.
Orban's, let's be clear, his constitutional reforms basically make it impossible for him and his party to ever be voted out of office. He was elected to a fourth term in 2022, and his party still controls many levers of power, even whenever he decides that he won't run again. And that's what Professor Icard, Donald Trump told voters, if you just vote for me this one time, you won't have to vote again. And we know Project 2025 again wants to do away with the Constitution. And Viktor Orban made it so that he can run indefinitely. He's already on his 4th term. We know in our country you have a 2-term limit for president. But if you do away with the Constitution, there'd be no reason why a Donald Trump or those that he put into power could not stay in power beyond that. The takeover of the media, the denouncing of refugees. I mean, these are things that Donald Trump is doing in real time. We don't need him to be president. He's in his run up to be president, he's already demonstrating what he will do. And these are these authoritarian, by the book plays that will lead to the U.S. looking like Hungary.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Areva. I think we conceptualize kind of move towards fascism and this kind of autocratic state as something that just happens overnight, when really, when you look at it historically, these things happen incrementally, right? And what happens is, and if you look at the Trump presidency, I think Dr. Malvo has said this very, very eloquently. When you actually look at his presidency, he kept setting the bar in terms of like convictions and what would get him thrown out of office. He kept doing a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And after a while, what we thought was the measure of whether or not somebody could get impeached or arrested, we realized that all of that was wide open. So like I would have never imagined that someone could have all these felonies and not only be at the top of the Republican ticket, but have a very, very legitimate chance of being president again. That tells you how the shift has happened in our country. And I think the thing that's most frightening to me is not only how Trump is moving, but how those folks that are supporting him are moving with him. He can't do what he's doing if that base wasn't supporting his kind of ideology. So what we see is in this country, there's a significant population that would be absolutely okay with an Orban type of government, with an Orban type of organization that would literally dictate that certain people that look a certain way get privileges over those folks that don't look a certain way. We know how white supremacy operates in that universe.
Well, one of the most chilling parallels between Orban and Trump, someone has pointed out, has been their media policies. Orban pioneered a devastating approach to destroying independent media, where he encouraged his rich oligarch allies to buy up media companies and turn them into government mouthpieces or shut them down altogether. Does that sound familiar when you think about Elon Musk buying up Twitter and turning it into the extreme X platform that it is, a mouthpiece for Donald Trump and the extreme right? And now Donald Trump talking about putting Elon Musk in his cabinet, or putting him in some very key role of the person who will examine our government to determine, waste and inefficiencies. So those folks who are sleeping on this better not sleep on this, because this is all very, very deliberate. When you have Fox News in the cable space and you have X in the social media space, you have two media outlets doing the bidding for Donald Trump. And there are others, but those are two of the popular ones. Again, too many similarities for comfort. When we come forward, we got to talk about the role of race in last night's debate. Donald Trump says he didn't care if Kamala Harris is black or when she became black, or, he tried to dismiss that very, very offensive, very divisive, very racist comment that he made at the National Association of Black Journalists about Kamala Harris becoming black. How did that play with the base? How did that play with those potential independent voters? And how did it play with black voters? All that and more when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org. If you have asthma, you know that there are certain things that can set off your asthma symptoms. These things are called triggers, and patients with severe asthma have an average of 8 triggers. It could be pollen, dust, pollution, colds, viruses, smoke, or stress. If you know your symptoms, you have already taken the first step to managing your asthma. The next step is to write your triggers down in a notebook or journal and record your symptoms when you come across those triggers. This will give your healthcare provider valuable information about what you can do to help manage your triggers. By understanding your triggers and writing them down, you are on your way to taking back control of your lung health. Visit luma-edu.com for more guidance. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and Dr. Julianne Malvo, Dr. David Eichhardt are here, and we are breaking down that historic debate, presidential debate, drew 67 million viewers last night on ABC. The moderators, Lindsay Davis, David Muir, getting a lot of praise for how they were fact-checking in real time, something we did not see in the debate with Joe Biden and Donald Trump at the end of June by the CNN moderators. Some important facts were checked, particularly around Haitians eating pets, around babies being born and then executed. A lot of effort made, obviously, by those ABC moderators to make this debate a factual debate, which Donald Trump already, folks are saying over 55 exaggerations, if not outright lies, were told by him. And I'm sure by the time all the fact checking is done, it's going to be way more than 55. But the issue of race did come up. When it came up in an interview Kamala Harris did with Dana Bosch, she kind of brushed it off, said, hey, that's the same old tired playbook, let's move forward. But last night, when the issue of Donald Trump saying Kamala Harris just recently became Black came up, she went through a litany of ways that Donald Trump has tried to divide the country, ways that he has discriminated against African Americans, talking about the ad in the New York newspaper for the Central Park 5, the discrimination in housing against Black residents, the birther lie about Barack Obama. Professor Eichhardt, you're a Black history professor. How do you think she handled that response? Was it enough? Was it too much? And what would you have liked to have seen if you didn't like the response?
Well, I think what was effective was, and what she needed to do was, she wanted to remind all the folks who were voting that this kind of jab that and move that Donald Trump is trying to do to insert race and racism into the race as a way to galvanize the kind of white supremacist voting bloc is not something new, right? The birther movement, as you just recounted what has happened with the young men. Well, they were young then in New York, and the fact that even when he was talking about that case, which was about rape and not about murder, right? He even falsely said, "Oh, they killed somebody," right? And so it was important, I think, throughout her whole debate to remind people about who this dude was and is, including what happened during the storming of the Capitol, right? The storming of that resulted in all of those, injuries to those police officers and several deaths. So I think she did what she was supposed to do. And again, it's a very delicate dance, because what he's trying to do is particularly with the Haitians and the eating of the cats, is he's trying to associate race with being unfit, with being primitive, with being wild and out of control. And that's something that he has done very well, almost maliciously well throughout his career. And he was trying to do it again, right? And so she anticipated that, her people anticipated that, and her comments, I think, were on point, reminded people that he's also been discriminatory in his business dealings. And I think that was a move that really backfired for him.
What do you think, Dr. Malveaux? He's out again saying he doesn't care. How dare you ask me? She's so insignificant. I could care less about her race, but obviously he does care, because he made it an issue. He made the statement. So we know, again, that's yet another lie. But do you like the way Kamala Harris responded to that? And just overall how she's been dealing with race in this election? It's obviously an elephant in the middle of the room, so to speak.
Well, she's a Black woman. There's no running from that. And she's not trying to. At the same time, she has to dance a very delicate dance in terms of she's a Black woman. But this is not about race. This is about qualifications. So when he said she could be whatever she wanted to be, I wrote a piece. And I said, yeah, she wants to be president, dude. Get out the way. I mean, that she can be whatever she wants to be. But the fact is that she's got to do this delicate thing. She can't ever, afford to be too, quote, pro-Black. I mean, she has the same dance that President Obama had. But I hope that Black America remembers when she is elected that we do not need to be quiet as we were with President Obama, that we need to ask for what we want. Again, I think that she is doing such a great job. She can't run away from her Blackness. She went to Howard University. She's an AKA. Probably the only mistake sister has made. Wrong story. But I mean, she can't run away from it. She's not going to make it an issue. So he tried to make it an issue at NABJ, and it's basically blown up on him. However, we do have a concern, and I hope we have enough time for Dr. Icard to really help me out with the slice of Black men who seem to have some challenges with this Black woman as a Democratic nominee. We still don't have quite the number of brothers who are supporting her, and many of them have economic reasons. Some of them feel like they do better when he has these business cuts. But some of them, if they don't say it publicly, they say it privately. They don't see a woman in that position. Help me out.
And let me add to that before you respond, Dr. Icard. One of the Black men I follow on Instagram wrote, Kamala Harris made a pledge to be the president to support Jewish Americans. She didn't say one thing about what she would do for Black folks on that debate stage last night. To your point, Dr. Malveaux, this is a Black man who says Kamala Harris ain't done nothing for Black people and ain't promising to do nothing. The floor is yours, Dr. Icard.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the one thing we always need to keep clear is that the overwhelming majority of Black men support Harris, will support her for the presidency, right? When it comes to Black men who support Donald Trump, I think some of that could be explained with, and as crazy as it may sound, sometimes I think we kind of underestimate people's intelligence or how easily they are wooed. Remember when Donald Trump put his name on that check,
right?
And that when what was really pushed by the Dems, right? But he was aware. He's always aware of the optics. So he put his name. He made sure that when you got that check, it said from Donald Trump, right? And when you hear these debates on like Instagram and TikTok, time and time again, people are talking about that check. Now, we could easily dismiss that as being ridiculous or about people just being unintelligent. But I think a lot of times what we don't understand is that for a significant swath of the Black community, those type of things matter in terms of their economic situation, right? We talk about 30 million Black folks living below the poverty line. So, if you're in a situation where, whether or not McDonald's raises their Big Macs 25 cents or 50 cents, it won't matter to whether or not you decide to eat at McDonald's. For a good significant portion of the population, particularly Black population, those things matter a great deal. And so I think it's important. I mean, it's often, I think, the case to kind of easily vilify people or kind of undermine their kind of choices as being kind of ridiculous or whatever. But I think, and I recall Biden in the last election when he was asked about Black folks voting for Trump, and he said something ridiculous about you'd have to be like, right, Trump's a racist, so it was ridiculous for some kind of Black person to vote for Trump. And I think that kind of arrogance on the Dem side, that kind of belief that somehow they've got it wrapped up and they don't have to do anything for Black people but kiss some babies and show up at church and clap on tune. I think we're underestimating how white supremacy works in the Democratic Party. And I think there's a lot more moving parts.
That thought, and I've got to have you guys back for this conversation. Really important conversation. Kamala Harris's team has been talking to Black men in particular, trying to address the very thing you said, Dr. Icard, is this notion that just because you are a Democrat means you should be voting for Kamala Harris, or just because you're Black, you should be voting for her. But go deeper into that, because even when some of us try to dispel this notion that automatically they should get your vote and start talking about things that impact the Black community that she has done, there's still a resistance there. So we got to talk about misogyny that goes beyond just the economic issues. But we are out of time, but that means we just have to come back to have this conversation. Thanks to both of you for being here. Your brilliant insights are so important to this conversation and to this show. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Conversation with you. Voice the Tree will be Robin Ayers and the Rao Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
A stall in Hollywood is causing 2 middle lanes to be blocked on the 101 North.